Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from worldwide. I'm Sterling. It's great to have you back on the channel. This show is being recorded on Saturday, October 5th, 2024. It'll be posted up live to the channel on Sunday, October 6th, 2024. As always, these shows are provided for entertainment purposes only. All the information I share with you comes directly real time through my guides, angels, extended spiritual counsel, ETs, famous people from history, so for entertainment purposes only. Also, if you just get a chance to like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, all those things really help the channel, and they're free. So wonderful to be back with everybody here. For those who need to reach me, we get that question all the time. Just go to sterlingpsychicmedium.com, look for the book a session tab. It's all very straightforward from there. And if you'd like to join our Platinum membership, we do live streams on Friday mornings, Pacific time zone. And you can find the join buttons on the front page of YouTube, as well as the front page of our website homepage, sterlingpsychicmedium.com. A quick footnote, we've been doing these shows now for a number of years and answer thousands of questions. We do have new subscribers that join us all the time. So sometimes what will happen is you'll hear some repeat questions being answered on these shows, but that's really more to kind of address some of the new subscribers we're seeing coming to the channel. So we do try to provide a balance. I think we had 425 questions submitted for this show on our community board on our YouTube channel, and my wife does go through them, screens them down to something that can be handled here on like a 1 hour show. And right now, I think today we have 72 questions, which I'll answer for you in real time. So without any further delay, let's get going on today's show. Question 72. Dear Sterling and team, how will this horrific storm affect the voting? So many people are dealing with huge losses. Will they just not care, which is understandable, or will they have to do what is necessary to make the voting happen? For those that are able and want to vote, will it still be more difficult for them? I see the federal government coming in with a lot of resources, both, I'll call it, in place in those locations, plus a lot of electronic resources online. And it looks like it's not going to have a big material effect on the election. So I still see, Kamala Harris winning the popular electoral vote. And I see a lot of these people in the affected regions will still be able to vote. So I still see a lot of individuals being able to cast their vote very effectively. And I don't see a big setback, if you will, in terms of people being able to vote when we get up into the November election. 71. What is going to happen with the dock worker strike long term? Yeah, and everybody realized in the news it got settled. I think what they ended up doing was renewing their contract up through January of 2025. I don't see any kind of a long-term disruption, and there isn't going to be another long-term strike of any kind. I do see a little contentious negotiations in January 2025 of them kind of re-going through the contract. It looks like they may stick with that 6-year plan they're on now with it's a raise per year. But my team's saying no real major disruption coming up. And it looks like they'll successfully get through the next negotiation cycle, January 2025. 70. Hello, Sterling and team. Will Mike Johnson certify the election if Kamala Harris wins? He has recently made a comment that he would if the election was safe and fair and honest, or words to that effect, leaving the door open for a possible no. I do see him absolutely certifying the election. He'll act like he's dragging his feet, but the results are going to be so clear that I do see him certifying the election. He may act like he doesn't want to do it. There may be a lot of pomp and circumstance around all of it, but I do see him certifying the election. 69. Hello, Sterling and team. Will it ever be proven that Epstein was murdered in prison and who ordered it? I've read on this a number of times over many years, and actually the federal government already understands what happened there, and it wasn't a suicide. He was taken out. So a lot of this information already exists with the federal government, and these cases are going to come forward starting in late 2025, 2026. 68. Hello, Sterling and team. Was the plan by his money backers for J.D. Vance to invoke the 25th Amendment if 45 won the election, declare him incompetent. It in back rooms, I see that kind of being discussed, but I don't feel like ever got any traction. They ever really believe that that would be the case, or so the backers for JD Vance, I think that it's like throwing ideas at the wall. I don't see that ever got any real traction, or they believe that'd be the case. 67, high Sterling and team. Will Andrew Cuomo make a comeback and replace Mayor Earl Eric Adams as mayor of New York City? I've always seen that Andrew Cuomo would make a significant comeback in politics. I don't see him coming back as the mayor of New York City. I do see him eventually taking on a congressional position of some kind. So it looks like kind of like bypass, if you will, that particular position and then kind of make it into Congress. But he will make a very strong comeback into politics. 66. President Jimmy Carter just had his 100th birthday. He has been such a good example of love from the source. Is Jimmy Carter an old soul? Absolutely, he's an old soul, and actually comes from the same extended spiritual soul family as George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. So he has a real big lineage from a spiritual standpoint, and also is a very old soul. 65 are the various species of extraterrestrials at different levels of evolution. Yes, just like humanity, it's all based on not just species, but numbers of reincarnation. Now, I don't want to confuse there's hundreds of extraterrestrial species exist in the universe. The ones that are AI, they're partially biologic, partially technology AI. Those are really more or less like machines. Okay, so that has to do with kind of evolution, but all the other extraterrestrial species are at different levels of evolution, and a lot of it has to do with reincarnation. So in a similar way, the way humanity's souls kind of evolve, so do extraterrestrials, although they are millions of years, far ahead and advanced. 64, hi Sterling and team. Thank you for taking my question. Would spinal surgery, such as disc replacement, affect someone's psychic abilities? No, not directly. So nothing from a spiritual aspect, but remember, whenever you have anything in the body that causes a huge distraction, high levels of pain, depression, nausea, or something of that effect, or high levels of anxiety, all those things can kind of shut down that communication channel with the other side. But no directly as spinal surgery or disc replacement, I think they're asking about, doesn't affect one's psychic ability, no. 63. Hello, Sterling. I've had a deeply embedded UTI for 15 years. And I'm not a doctor. I assume that's urinary tract infection. Very few doctors now believe UTIs can embed themselves, but new tests are proving they in fact do exist. Will the medical community as a whole acknowledge this condition and potentially find better treatments one day? The UK Urology Board has stated that standard 60-year-old UTI tests can only identify a massive bacterial load, and embedded UTI doesn't have a high bacterial load because it multiplies inside the tissue of the bladder. Again, not a doctor here, but I do see that there's some gene editing technology related to E. coli bacteria. So I don't know whether these embedded UTIs start maybe with E. coli. That's how they start. And then they get embedded. But there's something going on here where there's CRISPR technology looking at E. coli bacteria and infections and then putting this all together over just the next number of years here. It looks to me like it was either last year or this year, my team's telling me, they actually made some big breakthroughs in this area, understanding UTIs. So whoever asked this question, there are real solutions on the horizon. They're coming. 62. Hi, Sterling and team. Will President Joe Biden finally take off the restrictions of Ukraine using long-range missiles on targets inside Russia after the election is won November 5th? I get he's already taken steps to remove the restrictions. So, not all of this makes it out into the media for safety and security purposes, but I get that there's already some restrictions that have been lifted and in not well publicized. So that's what my team's telling me completely. Yeah. 61. Will those of us in our 60s and 70s live to see a real peace for Israel and its neighbors in the Middle East? There's going to be incremental steps made in peace, but I have to tell you that there won't be really long term, stable Middle East peace until we get out closer to the end of this 3 decade reset that we're in. That means much further out towards the year 2050. But lots of incremental progress made over these decades. It's going to take a long time here. 60. The Dulce Papers describe an underground base on Native American territory where experiments in gene editing, etc., are being conducted on humans by extraterrestrials, grays. What can you tell us about this? Yes, there are jointly held extraterrestrial bases in this area underground, jointly held by a number of extraterrestrial groups and the military. However, I don't see any gene editing or tests being done on humans. I think that's part of the question here. So I don't see any real abductions or human experiments going on there. There have been some hybrids, but there's a lot of other propulsion system and other sorts of weapon system evaluations or testing going on in that area. 58. Hi, Sterling. My two quick questions are: will the Democrats control the House and the Senate in 2025? I say yes and yes, but by very small margins. So unfortunately, it won't be huge margins, but they will gain control. Looks to me like of the Senate and the House. 57. The new legal brief by Jack Smith, just released, is full of 45's criminal intent and actions on lying about the 2020 election results. He knew he lost the election and still perpetrated the lies to instigate the January 6th coup. Will this information deter those planning to tamper with the election results through various unethical ways in November 2024? I don't see any direct effect whatsoever. So that those are highly aligned with 45 will actually continue with a lot of the subversive activity and creating chaos and some lies here. So the Jack Smith brief, while it's very important and the timing was very critical for it to get on the public, based on this person's question, it does not look like it's going to deter any of 45's core supporters that are involved in trying to create some havoc in the election. I don't see they'll be successful, but it's the Jack Smith document is not going to deter them. Also reminds me of the lady that was just convicted that got 9 years in prison for, and I don't know if it was I'm going from memory here, in Mesa, Colorado or something. I forget her name, but even as she was being sentenced, there was no remorse whatsoever. 56. Hello, Sterling and team. Will the Harris team, after being elected, start a federal pet rescue plan? There is a real need for adoptions, foster parents, trainers, low cost spay and neutering, and no kill shelters. It's interesting. I see this is all going to be part of a middle class plan based on Kamala Harris's administration. So, part of the plan is making the middle class healthier, but I see it involves so many aspects of life and living and pets and infrastructure. So it looks like my team's saying it's all going to be part of like a larger middle class plan that she's going to roll out, including animals. 55. How will humanity accept extraterrestrials? Will there be a panic? Well, there'll be a mild panic at first. The world will be introduced to a lot of hybrids first. So it'll look very human-like, but you'll understand through some of the information that's shared and the things that are being done. And then gradually, extraterrestrials will be rolled out kind of in their native form, what they look like. So it's a gradual progression here. It's the same way that all the extraterrestrial groups introduced themselves to humanity thousands of years ago. 54. Hello, Sterling and team. Are there any simple games that people can play to enhance or sharpen their intuition? Any games that sharpen your creativity and innovation is a great game or skill to work on. It's that innovation side of the brain, the creative side of the brain that actually connects directly with the universe. So all the most creative people that we know in the universe, even great scientists and great authors, a lot of times they'll share with you that information came from somewhere they don't know. But any games that sharpen your creativity and kind of innovation, self-expression are very helpful. They work that mind muscle. 53, metaphysical teachings usually say that if we're drawn to something, then that's what is right for us. But I've also heard people say that we could be drawn to things that are unhealthy for us, especially if we grew up in an environment that is unhealthy. For instance, if we grew up being abused, we will be naturally drawn to an abuser because it feels normal to us. These two teachings seem contradictory to me. How do we know what is truly right for us? So let's not confuse life lessons, life path lessons with like what you're being drawn to. So many times you might be drawn to a situation because you're still working through a life lesson. In the example given here, whoever asked this question, if you're giving up too much of your personal power to a situation, yes, you might be drawn to it. But that does not mean it's healthy for you in the life lesson there. So there are life lessons interwoven here in this question and the way people walk through life. So it's not just that you're attracted by it. So why are you attracted to a certain situation or group of people? And it's kind of doing a self-check on managing your personal power and completely standing in self-love, right? That's very important for all of us. So not really confusing here if you're not kind of watching thoughts and watching how you're moving through life. You're learning lessons along the way, but the only thing that's worse if you don't, learn from those lessons, right? 52, NATO just swore in a new Secretary General this week, the former Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, or Rutte, Rutte. Maybe it's Rutte or Rutte. He said Ukraine is the top of his list of priorities. Will we see a more aggressive and successful approach in helping Ukraine win against Russia now that he is in charge? Yes, but here again, much of what he's doing is behind the scenes. Now, it's all going to have a great effect, but there's a problem with too many things being done out in public and in the media, because then everybody has listening ears, right? Even the Russians and even a lot of adversaries. So it looks like a lot of what he's doing is working behind the scenes to be able to get the resources in place for Ukraine and help start the road down to peace and do a peace, a long-standing peace, and actually a good what I'll call it a good result from all that's gone on here in Ukraine, and including getting back a lot of the territory that Russia's taken over. Ukraine will not get back all of the territory, but I do see a substantial portion. It might be as much as 80% then regained of what Russia took. So Russia may only be able to hold on to 20% of what they took. But there's some negotiation going here. And then this new Dutch Prime Minister, former Mark Rutte, will be very significant in that area. 51, hi, Sterling and team. You say there is no hell. Why do so many people who experience near-death experiences see and experience hell? So this question comes up all the time. This is not a complete near-death experience. It's not a complete crossing. So many times people are taking with them the realities they understand here on Earth, or many times these are induced by drugs or narcotics, or maybe it's some other medication they're under. So a full near-death experience, a full crossing over, you don't experience hell. But there's a fear component as you're kind of walking through from the human incarnation, the human form, towards the spiritual form. But yeah, there is no hell. Now, there are people that create terrible situations on the other side. Remember, we all create our own reality, even here and there. So what you focus on really brings a lot of those energies to you, but there is no hell. But drugs can play a big factor, as well as one's beliefs, and it's not a full crossing over. That's why you hear a lot of these stories. 50, hello, Sterling. A couple of questions. If extraterrestrials would stop nuclear war, why would they have allowed Hiroshima and Nagasaki? This question also comes up a lot. Extraterrestrials are never allowed to change the lessons of humanity. So they're definitely engaged to stop the annihilation of humanity. But in that case, with those bombs, those nuclear events that occurred during that time, that actually brought about like completion or conclusion of the war. So extraterrestrials, they can't ever stand in the way of lessons for humanity, but they will absolutely stop the destruction of humanity. And that's what they're actually. That's why they're all coming forward now in this time period on Earth, is to help humanity from destroying itself again for a fourth time. 49. Hello, Sterling and team. Our dog, Snickle Fritz, passed away several years ago. Since then, I've had many instances when I'm awakened at night by the feeling of him walking on the bed. I say it's him because it feels like it did when he was alive. Is this him? And does he have a message for me? It's absolutely him, and he's actually wondering why you don't get up and play with him or pet him. So it is him. Validate that, and I get he wants to play with you, he wants to snuggle with you, wants to hug you. Wonderful dog, yeah. 48. Former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper is the head of the IDU, International Democracy Union, a right wing organization for far right leaning governments around the globe, over 80 members from 60 countries, sharing ideals and I believe fundraising. Is there a connection between this organization and Project 2025, where all the countries involved in the IDU are using this as a template for their own slip into far right fascist forms of government? If so, will it ever be disclosed to the public? Yeah, yes, this is absolutely the case. And the Project 2025 document, that's the names being used now. It's been around for decades, even the early, like President Reagan administration. And a lot of countries around the world have adopted this template. So may not call it Project 2025, but yes, complete alignment around the world with this kind of a global far right wing strategy. 47. What is marriage like on the other side? What vows are taken and what is the expectation? Do you find the mate you had here? What if you've been married here more than once? Well, if you're married to someone here on earth, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be married to them on the other side. We do go back into our extended spiritual soul families, our soul families, unique soul families, thousands of members. You acknowledge, you recognize those people. There's free will on the other side. You spend time with people that you want to spend time with. But there isn't really the same form of what they call marriage here on earth on the other side. Certainly souls feel very connected. You can spend a lot of time together. But it's different. So drawing kind of the parallel of like marriage on earth, it's quite different on the other side. But you free will, you can spend time with anybody you want. It doesn't really matter who you're married to here, but there is a soul connection. Obviously, we have many soul mates as you go through life. A lot of time you want to reconnect with your soul mates, many of them, when you're on the other side. 46. Hello, Sterling and team. My question is, when do you see the world turning away from fossil fuels and embracing clean green energy? And do you see powerful countries helping third world countries with green energy to combat the effects of global climate change? This is all part of the 3 decade shift here, right? 2020 to 2050. It's really by the year 2050, the world will be using free energy devices. And that's free energy from a quantum physics perspective. Not to say free energy from a monetary perspective. I was to make that clarification. I don't want to get too technical here, but yeah, free energy meaning that there's more energy that comes out of the reaction than's put in. So it becomes very economical. But a lot of this will be green energy. A lot of it's being looked at right now. Extraterrestrials are bringing down a lot of these forms. Some of it will be what they call cold fusion. But yes, it'll all be shared with the world, worldwide, all nations, underdeveloped nations. And fossil fuels will definitely start taking a big backseat within a decade to 15 years here. Really start taking a backseat. 45. Well, with the gifts you have, are you able to know when your body is sick and can you heal yourself? I'm actually no different than anybody else. When I get sick, a lot of times I need doctors. No, I don't normally heal myself. And a good example, I had kind of a major dental surgery a month or two ago, and definitely need doctors to intervene. So no, really no different than anybody else in kind of identifying when my body's sick and where I need help. Is certainly standing in love and light and working with your guides and angels. You can bring in the best outcome. But yeah, no different than anybody else. 44. Since you communicate with those who have passed on, do you talk to your family members daily? Yes. I mean, yes, occasionally I do speak to my mother quite often, and we can all do that. Everybody, I speak to thousands of people, and everybody can communicate with their loved ones. Their loved ones come around, but I do. I spend more time talking with my mother, who is, I think, highly spiritual, highly intuitive, than a lot of other family members. But I do communicate with all family members occasionally, but not all the time. 43. Hello, Sterling. Thank you for your wonderful lessons. Please, can you tell me what is the future of Haiti in 10 to 20 years from now? So many attacks from white supremacists. When will it stop? Unfortunately, Haiti is going to be under kind of real stress here for the next 10 to 20 years. Now, it could be 10 to 15 years, could start seeing a reduction, but it looks like only when the economy starts to shift. So, we're talking a lot about green technology in these shows, but when we get into green economies around the world, it's going to kind of shift the way the economies function, run in various nations and countries around the world. But unfortunately, there'll be a lot of stress around Haiti, at least 10 to 15 years, even more like 10 to 20 years here. Still a lot of corruption going on there. 42. Hi, Sterling and team. Are extraterrestrial societies generally hierarchical? Yes, they all have a hierarchy, much the same way we do in governments here, or levels of say professional education or whatnot. Yeah, there is a hierarchy, and they do even have hierarchies in governments. And you look at like the Star Federation that governs a lot of extraterrestrial species. So yeah, there's a hierarchy. There is. 41. Hello, Sterling and team. I have a question regarding people with dementia who take on completely different personalities. For instance, when my mother was in the nursing home, some of the other patients would be swearing and yelling, and their families would say their parent had never talked bad or even swore when they were well. I've heard someone takes control of their body. Is that true? No, no one takes control of the body. This is a biological human factor. It's a neurological function factor, and it's not another spirit or soul taking control of their body. Yeah, unfortunately, it's a neurological issue. It's a human-based issue. But yeah, definitely is not something to take control of their human body. 40. Does the one source, one force just evolve for this one universe? Are there others for each universe? One source, one force is infinite for the entire universe, and actually already complete. I mean, it really stops evolving, but completely evolves. So the one source, one force is omnipotent, so omnipresent, omnipotent, all powerful. And by virtue of that fact, they're really complete for the entire universe. But in terms of evolving, I think everything in the universe evolves to some extent. But there is only one source, one force for the universe. 39. Hello, Sterling and team. In the last reading, someone asked if a human could become an extraterrestrial, and you answered if they were in an earlier life. I thought that as humans, our ancestors are ET. Is that true or not? How does it work? So please do not confuse the concept of star seed with extraterrestrial. So all of our souls start out in star systems. By virtue of that fact, that is your star seed. But as star seeds evolve, not all star seeds, so to speak, chose to become extraterrestrial the first time around. Some chose to become what eventually became humanity, or Homo sapiens sapien. So this question does come up a lot. Don't confuse the concept of star seed with extraterrestrial. Star seed has much more to do with the basic first soul incarnation. And then from there, you can certainly move out to be an extraterrestrial or humanity. A lot of people made that selection up front. 38. Hi, Sterling and team. I have long thought there is a factual basis for beings considered fictional, like vampires, mermaids, leprechauns, fairies, dragons, unicorns, and so on. Do such beings exist? I'm particularly interested in understanding if vampires exist. Not necessarily vampires, but a lot of the mythical figures. You talk about dragons, mermaids. These were all forms of extraterrestrials and even elementals in many cases. So they were just fictional. They actually had a reference and a basis in fact. This person's asking about fairies, elementals. Yeah, fairies are real. Leprechauns, mermaids are real. Vampires, no. Unicorns, yes, as a matter of fact. A different type of animal. Yeah, so I'll have a direct connection to extraterrestrial or spiritual life forms. 37. Hello, Sterling and team. Recent studies using gene editing, CRISPR technology, and therapy, and numerous clinical trials over the past decades have been able to find a cure for HIV virus. Even so, I continue to pursue an energetic healing of the virus for myself. But do you see any vaccines or other therapies to cure HIV in the near future? Absolutely. Within 5 years, there's going to be a CRISPR technology vaccine for HIV. And I feel like scientists are being told again here in 2023 and 2024 this year already made very big strides identifying which genes are responsible because there are big breakthroughs around this, I think, in last year and this year. So identifying which genes are responsible and then kind of how to reverse or give the body an ability to reverse that. 36. Can you please give an example of how our thoughts change our reality? My reality is the same no matter what thoughts I have. So let's first off, let's take a reverse example. So if let's say somebody does your astrology birth chart and they tell you you're entering into a period of like massive health problems, if you walk out, let's say that engagement, whoever it was you're talking with, and now you start to create a lot of fear and you start to, now you have a chronic cough and chronic pains, and you're actually creating that reality. Thoughts are very, very important. Likewise, the reverse is true. Well, here's an example. I'm thinking of if I tell you you're a snowman and you're going to melt in a year, you're going to have an awful year if you really believe that. So the converse is true. If you put around yourself only the best thoughts, I'm living my best life, it's only going to be more exceptional. I mean, this is a simplistic way of looking at it, but thoughts do create reality. So think first off about the reverse examples, which sometimes are easier for people to understand. And then understand that same principle affects with a positive, like a go forward example. 35. Hi, Sterling. Can you give us clear signs to know when we're going through an awakening? If I'm interested in watching YouTube channels like yours and other spiritual videos and NDEs, does that mean I'm an old soul and I'm awakening? What does it mean if I'm awakening? What is the purpose of it? So, first off, awakening is just a gradual, progressive development process. It means you're understanding what the universe is all about, what our souls are all about, the infinite nature of our souls, the continuum of life. There is no birth, there is no death. So, awakening is really a progressive understanding. Think about it being progressively more aware. So, yeah, anytime you're sampling videos or reading books or talking to people, that's all part of a thirst for knowledge and a thirst for awareness. Really the quest for knowledge is part of the awakening process. Okay. 34. Hello, Sterling. Could you and your team read on Jack Smith 180-page legal brief about January 6th? He is presenting it to Judge Chutkan. Will this information become public? If it becomes public, will have an effect on the election. So Judge Chutkan already released it. I think it was earlier this week, got it released. That wasn't Jack Smith releasing it. Jack Smith provided the 180-page document to the court, and then Judge Chutkan released it. It's already been made public. The answer is it's only going to make a very small percentage difference. I mean, every little bit helps in an election, but a very small percentage of undecided voters, for example, will say, okay, well, that's the straw that broke the camel's back, or that's like the last nail in the coffin. So it'll have some effect. All of this collectively will eventually put Kamala Harris over the top. I see that as the winner overall. 33. Hi, Sterling and team. A few years ago, I was leaving the property where I board my horse. When I got to the end of the long driveway and looked to my right, I saw a very large cigar-shaped ship or object hovering above the neighbor's property. I snapped a picture of it and told myself it was just a blimp and then traveled out of that area. When I got home, my partner and I inspected the picture, and it did not look like any blimp we've ever seen can shed any more light on what we saw that day. Yeah, this is a form of extraterrestrial ship. And this is another form of Palladian ship. So there's thousands of sightings worldwide of cigar-shaped UFOs, UAPs. This is all form of a Palladian ship. Now, it does look, I'm asking my team here, you actually saw a real one. There are reverse engineered Palladian ships the government has reverse engineered. It looks like you actually saw a real one because there was actually a base. I'm hearing there was a base nearby wherever you were. So hopefully that helps. Okay, 32 on the countdown. When will 3D holographic communications be commonplace? So, freestanding 3D holographic projection technology already exists. It's very expensive right now. It's not commercialized. This person's asking when communications will be commonplace. We're about 10 years away from it being really commercialized in a way that, for example, all the mobile phone carriers adopt it. There's a number of steps in the technology evolution. Display technology is one of them, and then the communication technology behind it, and then carriers adopting it, the telcos, phone companies, internet companies. But it's coming within about 10 years. You're going to see it's going to be very, very commonplace. But kind of freestanding 3D holographic projections are already being done right now by a number of companies. I think there's a company called Hyper VSN, something like already got some of the technology. But anyway, it's all coming. This is an evolution. And I've always seen that at some point in the future, you'll be able to experience, for example, live concerts in your living room without ever going to like the Sphere in Las Vegas. You'll be able to see it in your living room. Good 10. My team keeps saying it's good 10 years away. There's also going to be a lot of artificial intelligence technology integrated into that as the back end for all that technology to be able to facilitate the creation of images rapidly and harness information from around the world. So all these technologies are actually coming together. 31. Hi, Sterling and team. 45's niece, Mary, has talked and written exclusively or extensively about her dad and her father, Freddie, who died at 42 from a heart attack. Mary described him as a generous, friendly, humorous, and gregarious person, everything his parents. The other siblings and children were not. What challenge did Freddie, fulfill by being born into such a family? Well, we all choose our parents, our siblings, our children as we come in as part of our blueprint, but you always choose it based on the lessons you want to learn and take away. So, many times being involved in an environment that is very antagonistic and very rough, it does teach you different types of lessons in life. And then you take those lessons back with you. They become part of your soul DNA. So it's always, sometimes it's understanding how to bear up in difficult situations. That is some of the biggest lessons. It kind of builds that inner strength and that soul strength, that soul energy. 30. Will humans, along with the help of extraterrestrials, ever coexist harmoniously on this planet? Yes, it's going to be faster than you know. Now you're asking about extraterrestrials coexist with humanity. Well, a number of years here, they're going to be very much in public. But as far as real coexistence, this is all part of getting that 3-decade reset, 2020 to 2050. By the time you get out towards the year 2050, you see a lot of integrations of extraterrestrial species across humanity, Homo sapiens sapiens. 29. How do extraterrestrials communicate with other ships, their home planet, etc.? Do they have a hierarchy or a governing organization? Yes, they all communicate. If they're down here, they all communicate with their mothership on a regular basis. It's a different type of light communication. What I mean is it's a quantum photon energy linkage that occurs with the mothership. Technology that hasn't been developed down here. But they communicate and have a hierarchy just the same way we have a government on Earth here. They have a government organization that's responsible for them. They have a hierarchy and they do communicate. By the way, my team is reminding that this light or photon-based communication technology that they use allows them to communicate across the galaxy in an instant of time. So it's a technology, it's almost like thinking about trillions of dominoes, let's say all stacked up, and you push one over and they instantaneously flop over to the other end. So this new light or photon based communication technology is also coming, will be delivered on Earth here over the next couple of years here so that scientists will understand it. 28. Hello, Sterling and team. When we become aware that we are experiencing a psychic attack, with external energy influencing our thoughts and nervous systems through fear, what is the best way to stop it? Is it appropriate to send the energy back to ensure that the source can no longer harm us? Uh, so my team never used the term psychic attack. It's true that you can attract energies that are meant for you, grounding yourself, centering yourself. This person's asking where are the best ways to do it. If you're having a really severe problem with this, it's almost like when you go see a doctor, go see a professional, psychic medium, some of that nature, but actually allow them to help you kind of, release this fear, release this energy, while you're attracting low level energy. But it's my team never use the term psychic attack because there's almost like a give and take, like you kind of attract that energy. So you have to get to a place where you wonder, why am I attracting energy? Am I depressed? Is there a drug addiction problem? Something going on here? Am I overly fearful? So it's those things that kind of attract that energy. It's not an attack. It's really kind of understanding, what you need to do to kind of get yourself centered and grounded. Okay. Hope that helps. My team just to remind you, you are always in control. And you have to remember that for all of us. 27. Hello, Sterling and team. Since launching his 2024 campaign, 45 has met with foreign leaders like Hungary's Orban, Poland's, is it Andrzej Duda, I think it is, Argentina's Javier Milei, and Qatar's Amir Tamin, okay? These meetings raise concerns about national security, violations of the Logan Act, potential foreign interference, and 45's ability to gain political and financial advantage from foreign actors. Why isn't the DOJ doing more to prevent 45 from compromising U.S. security, given the risk of foreign election interference and possible treason? Why is this one man prioritized over the safety of the U.S.? Well, what I get here is that the individuals in power believe there's a lot of factions across government asking about the DOJ here, that there are certain facets of the DOJ that are compromised, but they're compromised in favor of 45. So this is all kind of this is going to be a revetting process once Kamala Harris is in office. So there are a lot of changes going to take place here, but it looks to me like the powers that be understand that some of these governing organizations, like parts of the DOJ, are compromised. That's why they're not moving forward on it. But the federal government really understands what 45 is doing, what these interactions are all about. So they're monitoring it. They're all about it. But I understand it's frustrating for a lot of people and understand why more hasn't been done. It will be, okay? In fact, I see a lot of federal charges being brought against thousands of individuals as we get out into 2025. 26. Hello, Sterling and team. Will anything come from 45's GoFundMe grift for those affected by Hurricane Helene? Unfortunately, I don't see any real funding coming from that GoFundMe that will benefit the victims of Hurricane Helene, unfortunately. 25. Hi, Sterling. Sometimes you indicate to people that they have seen a government or extraterrestrial experimental aircraft. When I hear that, two thoughts come to mind. First, how come some of the people working on these airships have not exposed their existence to the world? How can these experiments still be secret? And secondly, does Israel or any of the Arab nations have these ET-inspired airships? If so, why haven't they used them against each other? So first off, a lot of these individuals working on these reverse engineered aircraft are under the threat of death, unfortunately, and death to their families. It sounds very unusual, but this information is kept very, very secret. And even when people come out in public to talk about it, there are more threats that come to themselves and the family. So it's really being kept in a very severe wraps. In terms of using technology against other adversaries, this has not been allowed by the extraterrestrials. So even though some of the technology has been reverse engineered, not being allowed. This is all part of why extraterrestrials are reintroducing themselves coming up here very shortly. Full disclosure. But and asking whether Arab nations, I don't see the Arab nations having either reverse engineer technology. There are some other Middle East, Israel, Qatar, believe it or not, have some of this reverse engineer technology, but not as well built out as U.S. vendors that they'll actually create ships. So kind of they're at a different stage in the development process. Okay, 24 on the countdown. Approximately 2.7 million unwanted dogs and cats are euthanized each year. Will there ever be laws regulating the breeding of pets to keep this from happening? If so, when? I don't see laws specifically, but over roughly the next number of years here, 5 years, there will be medications, vaccines, or something here that will make um, they'll actually, take replace the ability of a lot of animals to replicate. So, it's like per animal. It's not genetically going to change a breed, but it's almost like there'll be more medications involved. So you'll have to go through a vet operation for spay or neutering. So it looks like this problem is going to be decreased by about 50% in a few years here, but only because of these medications coming to market. So that's interesting. A lot of vets will have them. 23, with disclosure taking place over the next few years, what are the ETs looking forward to happening as a result? What are they expecting to influence or change once they have been acknowledged? Will they engage with humanity every few thousand years? We've been talking about that. This is the time right now in the Earth life cycle. They need to step in so that we don't have another repeat of the previous three incarnations of humanity. I really want to stop it here on the fourth one. And actually, the biggest reason for them coming around as well, not just saving humanity, but now putting Earth on the right track with green technology of all kinds, getting climate change under control, really, and also raising the level of information flow around the world so everybody's more connected, more knowledgeable, more educated. Remember that, even extraterrestrial children, they start off learning physics at a very young age. So you talk about being advanced, whereas, humanity, they grow in the first number of kindergarten and the first number of years of school, they're learning reading and writing and, basic forms of arithmetic. So this is all going to be a big sea change, a big paradigm shift for Earth, but it's necessary at this time because humanity, in some respects, is getting very stagnant, again, stagnated. 22, hello everyone. Will the United States find a way to ensure people are paid a living wage regardless of their work? For instance, daycare is necessary but also incredibly expensive, but the people who work in daycare are paid poorly and often overwork. You know, Really within a few years here, almost 5 years here, I see new federal funding coming in, but it's only because there's going to be a releveling of the corporate tax structure, right? Corporate minimum tax, talked about this before. The corporate minimum tax coming into play of 15%, 15%. But that's going to put a lot more revenue in the coffers. A lot of programs will be federally supported, funded, augmented. I think and daycare is one of them. I really see childcare, daycare, childhood education. There's a lot of things coming up around this whole area, but I think this person's asking about ensure people are paid a living wage. A lot of that's going to come about by the new revenues coming in by the corporate minimum tax. 5 years, you're going to see a big significant difference in all this. If you fast forward 10 years from now, it's really going to be a lot less of an issue. Okay, 21 the countdown. Hello, Sterling and team. What are your thoughts on junk DNA? Some say that it's God's DNA in all of us. Is there any correlation between CRISPR technology, gene editing technology, and this? Junk DNA is a term that was coined, I think, by scientists like in the 1960s. It's really what they call non-coding DNA. So I think in respects, I think maybe only 5% of our DNA is what they call coding DNA. The rest of it is non-coding DNA. But this is all part of actually the evolution of humanity, Homo sapiens sapien. This other DNA will become coding in the future, and it will actually add to it actually complements some of the evolutionary cycles that extraterrestrials have already gone through. So it'll be coding a lot more of the DNA that humanity has. But no, it's not referred to as like say God's DNA or CRISPR, but it is a portion of DNA that's non-coding that will become coding. 20. What does it mean when someone gets stigmata? Why does that happen? This is a medical artifact when certain wounds or bruises or something appear in certain areas that somehow align with the wounds of Jesus, right? I guess Catholicism closely aligns with this. But these are really human artifacts. And the fact that, say, the stigmata or the wounds is somehow somebody's further awakening or angelic presence. My team has always said this is really a concept created by humanity. So stigmata really, again, wounds or pain points or something aligning with what happened with Jesus and more around Catholicism, but it's not a direct correlation to spirituality, that concept created by humanity. 19, good morning, Sterling. Do you see cures for ALS, which is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or type 1 diabetes, CRISPR technology? Yeah, actually, CRISPR technology has already made advances in both these areas. I think we covered ALS and type 1 diabetes. And I'm getting that both of these have seen, first off, advances using stem cell therapy. And then they're going to somehow combine CRISPR gene editing with the things they learned with stem cell therapy. So it's almost like short-term stem cell therapy and then longer term here, 5 to 10 years with CRISPR gene editing technology. 18. What is the significance of seeing lots of magpies around me? What is their message? The message is very different for everyone. And it's not just magpies. If you see birds in general, birds tend to be messengers from the other side. A lot of spiritual entities can manipulate animals and birds, in particular, to get our attention. I know in Chinese culture, like magpies are always considered to be represent like good luck. I guess in some respects, if you see a lot of magpies, means good luck. But birds in general are influenced by the other side, by a lot of spiritual entities. And if you're seeing a lot of magpies around you, that's two different things there. I do see it looks like a lot of goodwill coming around you. And it does look like your family, in a collective sense, is trying to get your attention. 17, is it possible for a human to live without a soul? I was always taught the body dies when the soul departs. Human body never lives without a soul, but not to conflate two different concepts here. Your body is like a car. So if the car breaks down, there's nowhere for you to go in the car, so you get out of the car. So while they're interconnected, when it's time for your body materially to stop here on Earth, that's the time of your soul's journey, your amusement ride ended here on Earth, so to speak, as time for you to leave. So yeah, bodies don't live without souls, but in a kind of a deeper mindset, it's just really when your body gives up, you've finished what you incarnated to do, and you're moving on, right? So that's why the soul depart. Many times the soul, by the way, does depart days before the physical body gives up. I see that in many cases. 16, Sterling and team. Will Boeing recover soon from the really bad year or two? Don't see it happening soon. It looks like it's going to take a number of years, maybe not as long as 4 years or 5 years here. That's going to take a while for them to rewrite the ship, so to speak, in terms of public perception, government perception, vendor perception. There's a lot going on here at Boeing where they didn't keep their eyes on the ball from an upper management perspective around quality and even like workers' rights and things I'm hearing. So there's a lot going on here at Boeing. It's just take a number of years for them to kind of get it all back together again, regain the confidence overall of everyone. 15, hello, Sterling and team. I understand that soon the world of extraterrestrials, UFOs, will be made more public to us here on Earth. Once the secrecy is lifted, will there be a way for us to meet any extraterrestrials, like having meet and greets? Or has this seemed to be the case now? Will such encounters continue to be random? Well, I mean, in a few years, they're all going to be integrated in society. We'll actually have a chance to meet with them. All extraterrestrial species are very purpose driven. So they're down here not only to help save humanity, deliver new technology, new advances in health and science and healing and energy. So there'll be a chance to integrate with them, but only for the purpose like conveying information. So it won't be as random, but much in the same way they interacted with civilizations thousands of years ago. They were around mingling, and that's why you see so many cave drawings and things of spaceships and extraterrestrials. They integrated a lot with society to try to help. 14, by the way, including building the pyramids. 14, Sterling and team, I've been doing your Talking with Heaven exercise for about a week, and I felt right away like my guides took over and were speaking to me. Is this true or just my imagination? So they're talking about a video that we have up on our channel, training video called Talking with Heaven. It talks about a 5-minute a day homework that takes 2 weeks the first time you do it. I won't paraphrase the homework here, but what's important is what that homework does is it opens up the clairaudient side. We're all born with psychic mediumship ability. And a lot of time people give it up in childhood at the age of 10 years old. If you want to wake up that ability later on in life, that homework assignment helps you redevelop the clairaudient gift. That's the creative innovation side of the brain, where you can start hearing rushes of thoughts. To answer this person's question, it's vitally important to validate the information you receive. So as you start to open up that communication channel, I always tell people, keep a journal, write it down, and then look for ways to validate it. So for example, if they tell you to call someone specifically, like call Mark, you pick up the phone to call Mark and go, hey, I was just going to call you. This incredible opportunity came up for you. Let's talk. That's a validation. So you say, well, somebody told me to call Mark. When I did, he was just going to call me. So I always tell people, as you work through the process, you develop the skill. It's very important to validate what you receive. And then that trust comes through validation of the information. 13, hi Sterling and team. Are any of the ET interviews, ET autopsies, etc. real? And also, if we see ETs in our dreams, often does this mean we're communicating with them? No, nearly in all cases, you're not communicating with extraterrestrials. It's the form or the imagery. And really, a lot of the shows that are out there are not real. Alien autopsy, a lot of these are hoaxes. Information has been kept very, very close to the vest by the military, government. You're not going to see the real footage for a few years here. But no, a lot of it's hoaxes. And if you're seeing them in your dreams, it's only because they're coming into your thought stream, but not the real extraterrestrials, the image of what they represent, which is kind of a higher evolved form of humanity. 12, hi Sterling and team. Around the late 70s, I woke from a deep sleep to find a black German Shepherd sitting in the hallway at my bedroom door. The dog was looking at my daughter's room right across from mine. Then the dog turned to me and it had red eyes. I immediately heard, don't be afraid, stand your ground. It then started to dissipate, moving backwards, still sitting. What was this? This is a spirit of an actual individual that lived in that location. And they showed themselves as an animal. This is similar sometimes when people talk about their spirit animal. Spirit animals a lot of times are your guides. So you remember, guides can show themselves any way they want to show them. They're not really animals on the other side. So I'm drawing a parallel here. But this particular individual, maybe they tried to cloak their appearance a little bit, looking like an animal. But I get this individual that lived in that location at one time, and just like to protect their identity, show themselves as an animal. 11, hi Sterling and team. I become more aware of my angels and spiritual guides, but I'm concerned that I may be communicating with entities that may not be who they present themselves to be. There are some who theorize that all these entities are all wearing masks, and those that we believe are angel, spirit guides, etc., are in fact trickster spirits who do not have our best interest in mind. Any truth to all of this? So, like anything, when you start doing spiritual work, you actually start to look like a flashlight to the other side. So yeah, a lot of spiritual entities will come running. It's always a good idea to say a very quick protective prayer. Nothing evil, but you want to stand, supreme protective white light. You only want the individuals that are of the light to come through to speak with you. It's a matter of developing kind of a skill to communicate with the other side. We simplify a lot of things on this channel. The concepts, they're very practical and pragmatic, but a lot of times it takes some homework and study and practice to kind of perfect these gifts. But it's not true that they're all wearing masks on the other side. When you only ask for, the supreme white light of protection and only ask your primary angels and guides to step forward, for example, that's what you're going to receive. Okay. It's actually very straightforward. 10. Hi, Sterling and team. 25 years ago, I was getting out of an abusive marriage and I had what felt like a vision when I was frightened for my future. I woke up to the sound of a roaring fire that was warming my back as I slept. I turned to see where the sound of a crackling fire and a huge native guy with long black hair turned away from the fire and looked at me. And when we had eye contact, I woke up. Who was that? This is one of your Native American guides. We all have different types of guides. For you, this is one of your Native American guides, and they're just they will come around you in times of great distress. Very, very common to give you comfort. Okay. So it's a wonderful experience. I would bless that experience. Think about it, make yourself feel good every time you think about it. But they took the effort to show themselves to you. 9. Good morning, Sterling and team. Will the U.S. lose influence in Mexico over the next few years while Russia and China take more interest in this country? Yes, the U.S. will see significant reductions in influence in Mexico, or at least the next decade here, because of what's going on with influences from other countries, including Russia and China. So it's going to be really a bit of a tenuous push-pull period for the U.S. and Mexico. Yeah, it's going to be a rather difficult environment here because sometimes they say money talks, and a lot of investment coming in from those countries to try to influence Mexico. So we're on a better part of over the next decade here before this kind of gets under control. 8. Hello, Sterling and team. Is Melania truly pro-choice? What's going on with her? And does she really have ulterior motives? Well, I guess she feels a need to drive interest and eventual sales for her book that'll be coming out. I do feel like she has a real agnostic approach, whatever her husband, 45, is thinking, doing only what's good for her. And in an odd sort of a way, she's trying to soften the blow for her husband, 45, in terms of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. It's not going to work. But ulterior motives here are making sure that her book does well and trying to soften the blow of the Roe v. Wade turnover. Neither of which are really going to be successful in terms of what her intent here is. 7. Hello, Sterling and guides. Will there be advances in the near future for bradycardia or low heart rate below 60 beats per minute, which can cause lightheadedness and can happen as one gets older? I do see within 15 years here, gene editing technology is going to be helpful for a whole variety of cardiac related illnesses, including atrial fibrillation, AF, valves. And this person's talking about low heart rate below 60 beats per minute. It looks like a lot of these genetic drugs to be developed here using CRISPR will be used to rejuvenate the heart muscle, valves, help with AF, and help with this bradycardia, I think they're calling it. Yeah, all this is coming. Remember, there are 7 major areas. I won't go through them again here, but where CRISPR advances will be really monumental. Cancer treatment is one of them, blood diseases, but certainly in this area here, a lot of good progress getting made here. By the time we get to the 15-year point, there'll be a roll up to that, but you'll see some good drugs coming even before that. 6. Hello, Sterling. The entertainment industry is going through massive layoffs in the business, corporate, and executive ranks. For example, Lionsgate Studios just announced planned layoffs. You see the entire marketing team at Lionsgate being laid off. Well, yes, unfortunately, I see a consolidation of a lot of corporate groups and marketing groups across the industry, and also with with Lionsgate for entertainment purposes only. And I do feel that they're going to try to take an equitable approach, like early retirement packages or something here, to try to kind of fold this in more of an equitable approach. The whole entertainment industry, like a lot of industry, is going through a huge paradigm shift in the way content is created, generated, distributed, consumed by platforms. Yeah, and unfortunately, whatever's going across the whole industry here will also affect this particular company as well. 5, Sterling, I wonder if there are so many extraterrestrials living among us on Earth, how are they able to move about freely? Do they make themselves look like humans when around people and then go back to their ET selves when they go home? How are they not seeing them at events, shopping malls, etc.? So first off, they're not living around us. They're actually, a lot of them are contained on military bases when they're down here. So very protected environments. When they do occasionally have to move about society, they do it by using very common cloaking techniques, hats, sunglasses, bulky clothes. What's interesting is one of the dead giveaways, and you'll see people have experienced this, they're extremely tall. Sometimes the way they're walking, they look like they're floating. So it's very interesting. They're actually easy to spot when you know some of these things, but they don't really integrate with society a lot now. Many are contained on military bases. Okay. 4, it has been reported by many near-death experiencers reported that when they move upward from Earth, they can see a silver cord attached to their soul. Where is or what is at the other end of the silver cord attached to? So, this is a symbolic representation of the way your soul's connected to the heaven dimension as well as the earth dimension. It's more symbolic. It's an energetic connection, but you see this silver cord has come more symbolic. What's interesting about that cord connection with heaven, that is what supports the concept of what are called relay points of communication. So many times individuals wonder how somebody reincarnates. How can somebody communicate with their soul or their prior lifetime? It's done through what are called relay points in heaven, which are part of this interconnected silver cord, which is really an energetic connection. It's like a big phone connection, but it's not really a silver cord per se. But good question. I'm glad whoever brought this up brought it up. Number 3, hello, Sterling and team. I have heard it said that ETs are benevolent. However, I have questions and statements because I hear about abductions where experiments are done on humans, invoking extreme pain while these experiments are being done. Fetuses are removed and implants are placed in their bodies. Please tell me what you or your team are saying about this. So, first off, in nearly all cases, this has been agreed to by generations of families, right? So these genetic tests are being done with or in conjunction with extraterrestrials, been agreed to by legions of families. Now, I mean generations of families. Now, it only affects a very small percentage of families, something less than 100 families worldwide. I'll say that again, less than 100 families worldwide. But the generations of families have agreed to this in order to help with the evolution of humanity. So it's not just at the sake of creating pain and a lot of discomfort. There's a greater good going on here. So I hope that helps. And number 2 and number 1, I take notes before I start these shows, and I'll kind of read those back to you right now. So number 2, what do you see coming up this week? Unfortunately, significant escalation in the Middle East war, a new buildup in the Middle East for European assets as well as new U.S. assets to try to help stabilize. Also, unfortunately, new hurricane threats coming up from the Gulf areas again within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, really sorry to see this, but we're going to have a lot of activity, hurricane activity. I don't see this as being as bad as Helene, but this is still something that people are going to have to prepare for, and it's really difficult. But a lot of climate change has contributed to this. I also see President Biden getting out there much more active, along with President Obama. I think he's already advertised that, but it looks like in order to kind of bolster Kamala Harris, you see a lot of activity on the campaign trail coming up here this next week. And number 1 in the countdown, do you have anything your guides want to share? Be good to yourself in a meaningful way starting today. You really deserve it. Okay? On that note, that concludes the show being recorded today on Saturday, October 5th, 2024, and then released, made public on Sunday, October 6th, 2024. As always, if you need to reach me, go to sterlingpsychicmedium.com, look for the Book a Session tab. Then again, we have dates available, still some in March, April, and May of 2025. And if you'd like to join our Platinum membership, where you can experience live streams on Friday mornings, Pacific time zone, where I answer a lot of direct personal questions and world questions. The join button is on our front page, homepage of the YouTube channel, as well as the homepage of our website, sterlingpsychicmedium.com. On that note, I'm going to send out a lot of goodwill and tremendous love to you and your families. Take care. I will see you all again very soon.